boldly engaging the mindless propaganda of our time, apparently with reason. This is Rage of the Age.
This is Rage of the Age, and we have with us someone who has 2 decades of leading teams as a business owner, manager, pastor, nonprofit founder, and community organizer. He's a host of the Mitch Gray Show podcast. He is the founder of Mitch Gray Media. I want to introduce to you today Mitch Gray. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Philip. Appreciate you.
So you have all these decades of leading different groups, and I guess one of the goals that you have is to bring back a sense of humanity to business, as you would say. What are some of the overall things you've picked out of those decades in dealing with people and leadership?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is human behavior doesn't change. It doesn't matter when you go back in history, when you look at various platforms, whether it's the corporate world, nonprofit world, community organizations, educational institutions, human behavior stays the same. And really, when you're dealing with leadership, it's really up to leaders to adapt to their people and their teams and to understand the behavior of us humans. Far too often, many leaders don't. They're so worried about just simply getting a job done that they forget that the people that work for them are really the engine that drives their business or their entity, whatever that is. If you can create the greatest entity in the world, if you don't have people to help you, you're not going to make it very far. And so that's my biggest takeaway is all the platforms I've worked in, humans are the same. They're the same no matter what.
Trick question, though. If humans are the same, then how do leaders have to adapt to their changes?
So it's more of an adaptation from the leadership perspective. So if you take someone who hires, and I've heard leaders say this often, whether it's blatantly or in subtle action, you hear leaders that hire people and they're basically, well, you work for me, you're going to do what I need you to do. The problem is, let's say Bob, the CEO, hires Sam, the worker, and Sam goes through a divorce or loses a child or goes through a tragedy. Do you think Sam is going to be the same worker he was the day before that tragedy? And we really all just experienced that, right, with COVID. It's like one day last March, everything was normal. And then the next day it was like, what is going on?
Right.
And so really the change that I'm alluding to is how are leaders adapting to what happens in people's lives, adapting to the economy, adapting to pandemics. The human need and human behavior emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally doesn't change. That doesn't change. So when Sam, our worker, goes through tragedy, is Bob, the CEO, just saying, Sam, you got to get to work and you got to do a job? Because that's really what happens with a lot of leaders. Is they
Right.
they feel like they're paying them. They feel like and they are. I mean, from their benefit, they are paying them to get a job done. But at the same time, when someone's going through something, you're better served as a leader adapting to that, helping them through that, and then building that trust where they will come back and give you an incredible return on investment.
I imagine the difficulty for some leaders listening to this would be, how do I do that in mass?
Mm-hmm.
Like say I have a bigger entity of a business,
Yes.
and this person's about to give birth. This person's going through divorce. This one's, seeking counseling for whatever.
Yeah.
And how do I balance all that? Oh, and then by the way, now I want to run a business and make money.
Right. Yeah. That's a great question because it is different when you're a mom and pop shop and you have 3 people
Mm-hmm.
versus when you have 3,000.
Right.
Really, when you're leading an entity of that size, you better have an all-star team of leaders around you, because at that point you're not leading from a real pointed standpoint. You're not necessarily engaging in every person all the time. If you have there's companies now that are working across the world between their campuses or between their virtual teams. So you better have an all-star team of leaders around you that really it's leading through others at that point. It's
Right.
making sure that you have clarity on your mission, you have clarity on your culture, you have clarity on what you're trying to get done, and more importantly, you have clarity on how you're going to treat your people. Because there's no way one CEO or owner can hit 2, 3, 4,000 people,
Right.
but a team of 20 leaders can. And so that's when, you're really learning to delegate, learning to work through those other leaders.
And part of what you do is help uh, organizations hire the right people, right?
Yeah, and it's a simple statement, right? We're going to help you hire the right people, but
Sure.
it's really a larger perspective.
Mhm.
And my new book, How to Hire and Great People, that'll be out this summer. We actually start the book off talking about how to design culture. So what really happens is someone has an idea or someone has a product and they get right to designing it. And then all of a sudden, before they know it, they're having to scale. So now and I've kind of seen this happen over the last 2 or 3 years with people that I know. They start a business, it really blows up. Next thing they know, a year and a half later, they're $10-20 million business. Now they're having to add 30 people. But they forgot one thing, the foundation of the business, and that is the culture. How are you going to live, move, and have your being? How are you going to exist as a company? And if you don't
Mhm.
build that from the beginning, it comes back to haunt you when you have high turnover rates, when people complain often, when you can't find great leaders to help you lead that growing team. So culture is the DNA of a business of any size, of any organization, any platform. So hiring great people actually starts with designing culture, because then you gain clarity on who you want to work for you. Hiring can't just be a hodgepodge shotgun approach. That's where you see the turn and burn systems, and it just doesn't work. The data shows us pretty clearly that it's
Right.
expensive, and B, it leads to burnout, and C, it leads to bad customer service. So yeah, hiring great people is really about culture, and it's about alignment. Um, I often surf job boards just because I'm curious. It's amazing to me that the majority of job boards and job descriptions have to do with things that can be bought: certifications, degrees,
Right.
trainings. Very
Right.
few job descriptions are filled with character, hard
Right.
work, alignment, and culture. And so, what that tells us is they're hiring for all the wrong reasons. And that's really where I come into play, is helping leaders understand, begin hiring for the right reasons, and it'll take care of all the trouble, a lot of the troubles that you have.
I would think so. That you bring up a good point. That's something I've noticed over the years too. Is that things that I can either buy it or I can doctor it.
Yes.
I can make it look good on paper, but I could be the biggest jerk you've ever seen.
Yes.
But that question's not on there. How are you as a person? How are you as a human being? Are you loyal? Are you faithful? Do you care about your coworkers? Are you a team player? None of that. No, no.
No, it's
I
never.
have the credentials. I have everything that says I'm good, but the other stuff's not on
Yeah.
there.
I saw a meme the other day that was a little extreme, but it proved your point. It was on the
Yeah.
left side was a picture of an Ivy League graduate just
Right.
downing, a liter of whiskey or whatever, and then it said underneath, master's degree paid by mom
Right.
and dad, and then on the right
Right.
side was a minority person in a polo and khakis on a service board, like providing good customer service, and on the bottom of
Right.
his meme was 6 month certification program, making $75,000 a year, making sure you have electricity every day. And
Right.
it's
Right.
like, yeah, it's a little extreme, but it kind of proves the point to what you're saying.
I know that character's important, but you were talking about
Yeah.
designing culture for a business, and that's something you want to do from the very beginning.
Yes.
Uh, how do you juggle that? Because I mean, in the
Yeah.
beginning, if you're expanding, it's hopping and popping, and you're just making the puzzle fit. And sometimes you're making the puzzle fit
Hmm.
to just meet demand and to expand. How do you craft a culture in
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah. That's the $64 million question, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I would actually argue that it happens before you've even created anything.
Mhm.
And here's how. The majority of the time, I don't have percentages on this, but just guessing, I would say 90% of the stuff that happens with businesses starts out with one person.
Mhm.
It's Elon Musk having some crazy idea. It's Jeff
Right.
Bezos in Albuquerque, New Mexico, selling out of his grandma's garage. It's those type of situations. So even the largest companies that we look at in the world started with one person and one vision and one idea. And you could even throw that into, let's go outside of the business sector. You could throw it into religious movements. All the greatest religious movements started with one person, usually saying really crazy stuff. It was so counterculture that, that it became a movement. And so I would argue that actually before anything starts taking place, that within yourself, what culture you want to see. Now, that may not include a team of 500 people yet, but what it
Right.
does include is how you're going to function and move. And so then what happens when you know beyond a doubt what you're going to live for, stand for, die for, your culture? As you start growing, you can now include more people into that conversation. It's the same conversation. It's just now expanded. What are we still going to live for, move for, die for? How are we going to exist? How are we going to treat people? How are we going to treat our product? How are we going to treat our customers? And so, really, the conversation begins within long before the growth ever happens.
Hmm.
To me, the value of culture long before success allows you to survive rapid growth. It allows you to survive rapid change. You look around our country, and we're in America. You look around our country the last year, how many shops have gone under? How many of them have just decided I can't do it anymore? But the
Right.
people that innovated, the people that pivoted, the people that changed had a strong culture and was able to do something different. They're going to thrive because they've now added to their opportunity by the way they adjusted during the pandemic. But that was a decision long. That adaptability was a decision made long before the pandemic occurred. That's why they were able to do it.
Right. Now, for bigger organizations who have existed for a while, it could be years or decades, they have, what many have called a corporate culture,
Yes.
and it becomes entrenched and just kind of, it's just the way we do it here, and good luck changing that or fixing that. So now, when you speak to that scenario about, designing the culture,
Mhm.
do you have to like use dynamite and destroy things,
Yeah.
execute some
Yeah.
people, or do you, how do you design in a place where they already have a design and it might even conflict with what they do?
Yes, that's a question many people ask. And when I'm dealing with my personal business, when I mention the word alignment,
Mhm.
I'm very big on alignment. And so I'm very selective. If I talk to a leader and they're incredibly closed minded and you can just tell this isn't going to go anywhere, then, I usually move off of that situation because I know I have 10 other people that actually want to take action. So I'm
Right.
big on alignment that way. And I use that principle. I've even had to do that in the past with jobs that I've had. I've had to move away from jobs because I personally didn't fit the culture of the setting. And really what I've seen in my experience is the only thing that really changes leaders that are they're just so committed to how it's always been, to that culture you're talking about. Oftentimes the only thing that changes it is when the voices within, kind of when they're all-star players, come to them and say, hey, this isn't working. You treat us poorly. We don't enjoy it. It feels like more of a slave situation than it does an employee situation, and we've all experienced those. Really, that change doesn't happen from the outside. That change has to happen from the inside. I'll tell you a quick story. About a year ago, I had a young lady reach out to me from India, and we met via social media, and she needed some coaching. It was actually this exact scenario. She actually works for an American based company. She's in India, and the culture is just, it's
Mhm.
exactly what you painted. She's like, Mitch, I don't know what to do. I hate going to work every day. I said, well, if it's that bad, first of all, you need to consider a change.
Right.
Second of all, if you want to keep this job because it was kind of her career dream,
Mhm.
then you need to gather some unifying voices to confront the leadership. Interestingly enough, a few months ago, I talked to her. Guess what they did? They unified some voices, they
Okay.
confronted the leadership, and things are slowly changing. And so
Mhm.
I think when it's that type of negative culture, it's entrenched culture, really my encouragement is unify the voices within and kind of paint leadership in a corner and go, you either got to change or we're all leaving. Because those leaders are smart enough to know if they lose all their people, they have nothing.
Right.
So yeah, there's power in that unified voice.
One of the biggest complaints for a lot of companies is the changeover of personnel.
Hmm.
You hire them, you train them up, they work for a week or two, maybe a day, depending on the industry. And then they're gone again. And it's like this constant revolving door of just filling the gap.
Mhm.
The whole question of choosing the right people is really serious in that scenario. Does that
Yes.
happen? Does that happen because they're not choosing the right people, or they're just, or is it what they're throwing the people into? Could it be the nature of the industry itself? In my head, I'm thinking of things like security work, fast food. It's not dream jobs. You don't go, you
Right.
do them as a
Right.
job. I'm just going to make extra while I'm in school, or the hours fit my thing. It's not my dream. I mean, could it be industry related? Is it some of this all together? What do you think's doing all?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes.
Yes. Okay.
So, but there are some remedies to that.
Okay.
And really, again, the research and the data shows that there are a lot of remedies to that. And really, the remedies are, again, I'm going to go back to alignment. When you hire someone and put
Hmm.
them in a position that doesn't fit their skill set, their passion, their interest, then you're doing them a disservice. They're not going to stay with you.
Right.
And you talk about the hard industries like fast food, security work, et cetera. The crazy thing, Philip, is I actually personally know probably 4 or 5 people that started off in the fast food industry. 3 of them were with the same company. They start
Hmm.
off at the same fast food industry company in high school, and
Right.
25 years later, they're still there, and they're making 80 to $100,000 a year running restaurants.
Right.
So what that tells us is when you find the right people,
Hmm.
it's actually your greatest investment. And so I can think of a couple of guys in security actually that I personally know that love security. A couple of them are bouncers at bars. I wouldn't do that job. They
Right.
flipping love it. They love having to punch people in the face, and that's just kind of who they are. So then
But
the question,
disclaimer, that's not what security guards
that's
do on a constant basis. But yeah,
no,
I
not
get what you're
normally,
saying.
not normally. We don't condone that, but
I'm just
but
going
these
to
are
punch in faces.
yeah, but these are the bouncer guys, right?
Right.
They're the guys that they don't mind putting on the black shirt and the black pants and
Right.
wearing the badge. They love, just like I have friends they love being cops. I
Hmm.
I don't That's not my cup of tea, but they
Right.
love it and they're good at it.
Right.
So then the question becomes, and I always ask the leaders I work with, who on your team is an all-star? Why are they an all-star? And where can you find more of them?
Hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
question so many leaders don't ask. They're taking what I call the shotgun approach. When I was a kid and I
Right.
first
Right.
learned to hunt, a true old-fashioned shotgun, what happens when you shoot it? The pellets just spread, and so you have
Hmm.
more opportunity to hit something. That's the approach people take on hiring. We're just going to hire as
Yeah.
many as we can. Hopefully 10% will stay. That's ridiculous when they're missing. If I could go back to all those people that I know that are with those fast food chains still, that are still in security, that are still in carpentry work, that have gone on to start their own businesses. My question to them, if they work for me, is who are your friends and who else can you help me find?
Hmm.
It would blow people away how good of recruiters you already have working for you.
That's a good point.
You just don't ask. You just don't ask. And that's where people, if I'm hiring from within based on the people that already exist and based on the people they know. And then I'm recruiting from without. And I'm
I've
doing
definitely,
that. Go ahead.
I've definitely seen the shotgun
Hmm.
approach applied in, well, so many aspects of life. But as
Yes.
far as the hiring principle, I call it the school of fish
Yeah.
principle versus
Yeah.
the mammal nurturing principle, where have as many fish eggs as possible, hopes that some of them survive. That's kind of how some
Yeah.
take the approach at it. I was once a security guard working
Hmm.
for a factory
Hmm.
all night long into the morning, and then everybody come rushing into work certain times, and they would have a turnover rate, like people would be there
Incredible.
like a week or two, and they were getting paid twice as much as I was to man
Right.
that stupid gate and deal with them.
Right. Right.
And they still couldn't keep them. And HR was constantly, they'd send us these pictures and of who these people are. They're not allowed back in anymore. But it was ridiculous because the books had gotten so thick. I
Hmm.
wouldn't know. I see a guy one week, I wouldn't see him again. And if he could come in again the next week, and I wouldn't know it because there's just
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
coming in, leaving. but their hiring practice were just like, you wanna come on, and they just
Yes.
throw me in.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, you got people driving up, they smell like marijuana, they're drinking and
Yeah.
driving, they're fighting and punching each other. I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't hire you.
Well, and then
Right?
and that's a great point, because on the other side of that is, why are you going to stay at a position that you don't think you have hope or high expectation of?
Yeah.
We started this conversation with human behavior. The human
Mhm.
behavior has shown us people will live up to the expectation you hold of them.
There you go.
They just will. And if they don't, they'll find their way out the door. But those positions, I was talking to a guy the other day that I was doing some coaching with. He owns a carpentry business. And he's like, Mitch, I can't find people. Like the same thing. They'll be with me a week and then they don't show up the next week. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, but
Exactly.
who are you hiring? And he's like,
Yeah.
well, it's whoever I can find. I said, well, that's your
Exactly.
problem, because you go down to this gas station that's open 24 hours a day. He's paying people $25 an hour to do carpentry work. Those people that work nights at the gas station are making minimum wage. You can't tell me
Yeah.
they wouldn't want to learn how to build stuff and have a better job than they do now.
Mhm.
And he's like, oh, I've
Yeah.
never thought about recruiting them. And I'm like, well, there you go. They're hard workers. They're committed. They freaking work overnight jobs. Like you said, no, people don't enjoy
Yeah.
that.
No.
But they would love to learn how to build cabinets, learn how to do things like
Mhm.
that, and make $25 an hour. And so, really, you're right, man. Just having all these eggs and hoping some of them
I
live
know.
is, and the data is crazy,
Right.
because in a leadership position, research shows us that it costs up to 200% of an annual salary to replace that position. For normal employees, it's up to 75 to 100%. So every time they turn and burn, whether they've been with them a week or a year,
Right.
it's
Right.
because you have onboarding, you have training, you have,
Right.
if there's any incentives involved, if there's any benefits involved, it is very costly for companies to turn and burn people. And they know it. They know it. They just don't know what to do, or they're not
Mm.
willing. And some people just aren't willing. They think it's easier to just do like what
Yeah.
hire whoever.
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
Yeah, that's I was wondering the element of do they feel it's less painful to just deal with that than just to find the good people? That's what I'm wondering, because
Well, they do, but they do because they don't know how. It's like if I don't know how to change a spare tire, but I have a spare tire on my car, but I have a blowout driving down the highway, I'm going to think it's easier to pay $200 to call a tower or a repair person to come fix it. Why? Not because I don't have what I need. It's because I'm ignorant of how to do it. So
yeah, but
then
if
the
you had a
question
blowout
becomes,
every day, you might get wise.
well,
If you have a
you would
big
hope.
changeover,
You would
yeah,
hope, but
right.
unfortunately, people aren't. And yeah, you would hope, because that gets really expensive.
Yeah. So I guess part of the hiring process how important it is to consider a person's personality and characteristics, because that's, like you said earlier, that seems to be the last concern. That
Yeah.
I mean, but how does a good, so like your HR department, for example,
Yeah.
you can do it the DMV way, just process each one and send them on the way, make everybody miserable in the process. Good job, right?
Yeah.
But how do they become people who are good at finding good people?
So that's a massive question, because there's so many
Yeah.
elements to it. First of all, you look at what HR has become, and it
Right.
isn't hiring and developing.
No.
It it began that way. It began
Right.
because somebody got smart and said, well, my guess is it was probably a growing company, and somebody was like, well, I can't handle all this. Let's get some
Right.
people who are human resources. But it's no longer human resources.
Right.
It's
Parts store.
yeah, it's exactly right. And so that's the
Yeah.
first issue, and we're not going to tackle that because that's a whole nother big, but that's a big
Sure.
issue. But your question on character and personality, I like to wrap those human elements into one word, and that word is energy.
Okay.
And oftentimes people don't think about this. When you have those moments, everyone has had them, when either you walk into a room or someone else walks into a room, and the energy either goes up, like the room got
Mhm.
brighter, or the energy gets sucked out. And everyone knows that. Every time I give that example, they respond the way you just did. They're like, "Oh yeah," and they're probably thinking of someone, right? It's
They know,
like,
yeah, they have that
yeah,
person's face in their head. Yeah.
yes. Here's the crazy thing. When I sit across the table from you and interview you, that should be the first thing on my radar. What's this person's energy?
Right.
How do they make me feel? Because however they make me feel is how they're going to make their coworkers and the customer feel.
Yes.
And so if they don't make me feel good, I don't care if they have a doctorate's degree. I'm not going to hire them. And people are like, "Is it that simple?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's that simple because anything else I can teach, I can buy, I can certify. I can't teach personality. I can't teach energy. I can't teach positive attitude. I can't teach stop gossiping all the time. I can't teach all that stuff. What I can teach is how to fix whatever, how to sell whatever, how to
Hmm.
build whatever. I can teach all of that from IT to cars to selling vacuum cleaners. I can't teach a great smile. I can't teach a positive attitude, and I can't teach energy. And so, I really learned that years ago, 2 decades ago. I was working for a high fashion retail company. I was running a multi-million dollar store for them. And at the time, now we're talking late 90s, early 2000s. No, the electronic application didn't exist yet, right?
Yeah.
It was all paper. And
Right.
we had an unwritten company policy that we interviewed every single person that filled out an application because we thought they took the time to fill out an
Mm.
application. They deserved our respect. So it was a 3-minute interview. I interviewed on average 5 people a day, 6 days a week for 5 years.
Mm.
I learned really quickly that I could interview someone in 3 minutes and get it right 99% of the time.
Wow.
Why? Energy. Energy. If I asked you, "Hey, so Philip, tell me a little bit about yourself." Well, I go to school, but I went to Baylor and got a master's degree. And conversely, "Hey, Phil, tell me about yourself." "Oh man, I graduated college last year. I'm excited to step into the
Yeah.
world," or what. Those are two different conversations. And oftentimes companies talk themselves into hiring the person that, like you said, looks good on paper.
Right.
And now it's even more difficult because of algorithms. I will
Yeah.
give you an example. I
Oh.
personally can't pass an algorithm because I've been self-employed for 15 years. And guess what self-employed looks like to an algorithm? It looks like I'm
You're
unemployed.
you're evil. That's what you.
Yes. I can't pass an algorithm, and here I am consulting business
Yeah.
leaders on how to run their business, and so they're missing out on so many great people.
Uh, I'm recounting from my lifespan how I have literally failed job like applications
Yes.
because of personality tests that I take with these
Yes.
random questions. Who knows what they're looking for? And like
Right.
and like and then everything went great, good energy, all that stuff. But then they like give that very cold call or email when that came out. Yeah, we can't proceed any further. Your personality test came back. We can't go in. Well, what did it say? What happened? We can't talk about it. Well, what did it click?
Confidential.
And it's like
Yeah.
I caught something, and,
Yes.
and I'm
Yes.
like, what? Based on what? Based on what?
And here's
I
the
don't
crazy
know.
thing, man. They
Random
they
test.
don't they don't have the answers to your question.
No, it's just
Because
whatever it said.
again, yes, because again, HR has not become human resources. It's become
Right.
something I don't even know what to explain. And I have a friend who actually worked in human resources, and she was like, "What's crazy is we need to put the human back in
Mhm.
human resources." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
you're exactly right." And it's a challenging game. It's a
Yeah.
challenging game.
Well, you said you could do you got to where you could do within the first few minutes, you kind of had a
Yes.
feel for the person. But
Yes.
I imagine you could possibly develop certain measures of testing, if you
Hmm.
will, for
Hmm.
for those that they don't feel they have the discerning instincts that maybe you have, for example. But
Right.
surely you could develop certain ways of testing how someone reacts to something you say,
Hmm.
or you ask
Hmm.
them to do something, on the side, and you just kind of watch their reaction, how they deal with, how they handle with people. I mean, you could set up scenarios, I think, to where you can kind of get
Yes.
them to act like themselves
Yes.
rather than check
Yes.
out my paper. I look really good. Yes, you
Yeah.
do. But let's see how you really look, right? I mean, do you think you know those little things can be just kind of added to the interview process to kind of look at
Hmm.
a person's energy?
100%. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
call the art of question asking.
Ah.
It's not about for me, it's not about me selling you on my company.
Hmm.
because you're the one that applied.
Right.
Now, hopefully you're a good interview. And if you're a good interviewee, you're going to interview the interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what you're doing. But if you're just someone applying, then I don't have to sell you on my company. So what you're trying to do is sell yourself to me. What that tells me as an interviewer is it's all about me asking questions. I don't have anything to tell you.
Right.
Again, hopefully if you know how to interview, you're going to ask me questions. So that's the first thing is, I've seen situations in interviews where they go on and on about the company, about the benefits package, blah, 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 and they don't find anything out about the person they're interviewing. But you know what doesn't matter right now during the interview is benefits package in the company.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. No. And to be quite frank, if now I want to disclaim this a little bit because this can come across harshly.
Right.
During our current situation where people have lost jobs, they have lost benefits. I get people applying for jobs with benefits. Okay. Outside of this inordinary situation, if you're applying for a job only because of the benefits, I'm going to question your motive. Because what that tells me is when a better job with better benefits comes along, you're going to jump.
Yes.
And so I want to go back to what you said earlier about those jobs where people are just turn and burn. Well, that's what I mean by giving them hope and expectation. That's people aren't proactively hiring. In other words, they're not working through scenarios of why this person would leave before they hire them on both sides.
Right,
and so in outside of all this situation where people are having major tragic changes, if someone's just applying for a job for the 401k or the benefits, I'm going to be really leery on hiring them because again, when the grass gets greener on the other side of the fence, they're going to jump the fence. Okay, so I can be proactive on that. Now, within this pandemic, that's a little bit different because I've met some great, well-qualified people who unfortunately lost their job. So you have to be smart about it, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing with you saying, we can ask questions, put some testers out there during an interview. If you're interviewing for an assembly line or for a carpentry project or maybe even a security guard position where they're not going to have to deal with people, well, then personality isn't as high on the totem pole.
Sure.
You need the right personality, but you need that alignment. Now, if I'm hiring for sales and customer service and I hire the guy that doesn't like to talk and just wants to be on the assembly line, that's on me.
Yeah.
That's on me. And so that's kind of the problem is, I think that there definitely are questions that you can ask, but really the most important questions are the internal questions. So I want to go back to culture and clarity. If I don't understand who I'm hiring, why I'm hiring, and what they're going to do, then I don't need to be hiring people. Why, who, and what. And 99% of the time when people put a job board out, they're just filling a space. They go, oh my gosh, we need another IT guy. Why? What are they going to do? And who do they need to be? It's just like when you're starting a business and you create your ideal customer. A good marketing company will have you literally illustrate that. They'll have you, paint. What does that picture look like? Draw, write out what conversations are you going to have with that person. They want clarity. And it's the same when you're hiring. What does this person look like? Who are they? What experiences do they need? Do they need any experience? Those are the internal questions that have to be answered before you ever start the interview process, ever. And so many people aren't putting that time in on the front side. Now, we're also dealing again with algorithms and with electronic applications. But there are some tricks.
Yes.
There are some tricks you can learn. When you're looking through, a lot of companies are using things like Indeed and Glassdoor and other kind of back end third-party apps. But you can still hear the conversation from the applicant through those resumes. Someone may say, I spent a semester in Spain studying art. Ooh, that's interesting. If I need creative people, that person's all of a sudden a bit more creative than the person that just studied IT for 4 years and spent 10 years with Microsoft. They may know the programming, but have they really experienced the human relationship to that programming? The girl that spent a semester in Spain studying art, I want to know more about her. And those are the little things that you can look for that kind of pique the curiosity. Now, it may or may not work out, but so many people miss those opportunities. Now, I'm a little bit biased. If I saw your app and you were self-employed for 10 years, I'm going to be like, ooh, that takes some guts. I want to hear about that person.
Right.
But they miss that. They miss that, and so those are things they can look for.
Yeah, but that's probably like you're saying, though, that's what are the questions they asking themselves before they
Yes.
look for the people, right? Do I
Yes.
want creative people, or I want just single task people for my assembly line, or I want customer relatable people who won't eat the customers as they deal
Mhm.
with you, and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that, that's the things you got to scan for to
Yes.
pull out that person looks like they might fit that, right? And again, it's
Yes.
just matching that person with the job. And by the way,
Alignment. Yeah.
I hate electronic applications. Absolutely. When I've
Same.
had to do them, I've had to do them for filling out. I'm looking for jobs, and I put them out there. I don't even know if they get it.
Right.
I used to like taking it to the place. That way I can like let them see me. I can talk to the staff a little bit,
Yes.
try to
Yes.
make myself felt a little bit. That's removed. The personal connection is absolutely removed.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I send in, and you think, and again, it's like, how can I look good on paper? And that's what everybody's
Right.
doing.
And that's
We're
easy to
trying
do.
to,
That's
right.
easy to do.
And apparently someone outwitted me on that somehow, because I
Yeah.
don't get, no.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
how do you hire somebody you never even heard speak? That baffles me.
Here's a crazy thing, Philip. Between 85 and 90% of our economy is made up of small businesses.
Right.
Small businesses equate to 30 million or less, 500 employees or less.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole point of that is, it's not like the Amazons of the world and they don't make up the majority. They just don't. Now,
Yeah.
the majority of volume of business, they make up the majority of their owners are wealthy.
Right.
But as a whole, when 85 to 90% of your economy is based on small business, what that really tells us is people are getting lazy. Because if it's
Mm.
500 employees or less, I can interview all those people.
You're right.
I can interview them. I don't need a backdoor app to run
Right.
through those. I can
Mhm.
interview. And now I want to be thankful that we do, because there are a lot of people I know that have gotten great jobs because of those apps.
Sure.
Here's my theory. If I'm running a company right now with 500 or less employees, I'm
Mhm.
interviewing and hand selecting 80% of my team through
Mhm.
recruiting, through in-house recruiting and recruiting through my team. And then the other 20% is gravy on the biscuits, and that's through the third party apps. So that's just
Right.
a bonus. And that's the formula I would really function by, because then I get to control who's on my team. If I hand select
Mhm.
80% of my people, I'm gonna have less turnover. I'm gonna guarantee you 99.9% of them are gonna be aligned properly. I'm gonna make sure we can take care of them. Me
Mhm.
or my leadership team is gonna know them personally. Well, I would rather do business with people I know and trust than a
Right.
stranger. And so what that tells us, if 85 to 90% of our economy is small businesses, but the majority of them are third party apping, that just tells me they're lazy. They think
Yeah.
they're efficient, but they're not. That's not efficiency.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, because I know the place I've applied for, and others I've known who have applied doing these electronic apps, and just like at no point was there a person involved in the process
No,
at all.
no,
And it wasn't for huge corporations. It was
no.
like small businesses. I'm thinking,
Yeah,
you can't,
yeah.
you don't want to actually talk with anybody. I don't know. Maybe it is laziness. I don't know if they think it's the wave of the future that's supposed to work better. Maybe they bought into the technology thing. I'm not sure.
I was working with a company not long ago, and pretty small company, 75 to 100 employees or less. It's a
Mm,
very small market, and they were doing all their hiring through third party apps. And
mm.
I'm like, hey, when you have 75 employees, that you should be personally hiring. Like, it was comical
Right.
to me. It was comical to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is insane. Like, this makes zero sense whatsoever. And after
Right.
I finally got them to buy into it a little bit,
Mhm.
it took it took a little work. But what was crazy is it was like, wow, the last 10 or 12 people we've hired are great. I'm like, oh, what, do you think that's irony and luck? No,
Right.
that's because you strategically hand selected and recruited those people.
So your book, How to Hire and Keep Great People, that's going to have a lot of what we've talked about today, isn't it?
Yeah, the first section starts off with culture design. We really dig into everything from
Mm.
how to develop a culture team that helps design your culture. We talk about how to back up. You ask the question, if we've already started a business and it's growing, what do we do now? So
Right.
we do talk a little bit about backing up and that you can redesign your culture. In fact, a great business guy that I listen to, Donald Miller, he actually said in his new book, Business Made Simple, he said, if you're not redesigning your culture and your mission statement every 3 years, something's wrong, because it evolves, things change, and this pandemic again has shown us that. We talk about where to find great people. I'm telling you, the gold mine for employees is college campuses. And it is the most undervalued and underrated places to find employees.
Huh.
They will work hard, they need to make money, and they need to find a career.
Yes.
And but back when I was recruiting actively, I got to where I found 70% of my people on college campuses. And college professors, they want you to come in and speak. If I'm a business
Right.
owner, I'm speaking at every college I can because it gets me customers
Right.
and it builds trust and it lets
Yeah.
me practice my business. It lets me kind of live and practice what I'm doing. So we talk about where to find great people, and then we talk about development. That's the key that we haven't really talked about that companies are undervaluing. They hire someone, they onboard them, they throw them to the wolves.
Right. Right.
And the number one reason people don't stay at a job year after year across the board, it isn't money, it isn't time off, it's value. They don't feel valued. That's like an 80% statistic.
Yeah.
People
Wow.
leave because they don't feel valued. So what that tells us is when you invest in your people, when you do continuing education, when you give them opportunity for promotion, when you trust them, when you ask them how Sally's softball game went the other night, those people are going to stay with you longer, work harder, and become your future leaders.
Yes. So where can we find that book then? How to Fix and Keep Great People when it comes
Yeah,
out?
it'll be available everywhere. It'll be available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a ton of other places. Pretty much anywhere you can buy books. We do self-publish. That's how we've done all of our books. But the publisher that we use, it's available anywhere you can order books. Yep.
All right. All right, Mitch, I want to thank you for giving us your insights on this today. I'm sure a lot of what we talked about resonated with people. Like, yeah, that happened to me. Or, yeah, I remember when that went place. And then those pictures of people's faces, like you said, entering their head. Everybody's probably had some flashbacks today.
Yeah.
But it's been awesome
Yeah.
talking with you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
Welcome to the essay segment. It's definitely a joy talking with Mitch Gray, discussing the ins and outs and the battle, which is hiring of people or getting hired with companies. I'm sure there's many a horror story and a whole bunch of shaking heads or scratching heads or maybe pulling the hair out of your head, trying to figure out, what do you want? What are you looking for? Why are you applying? Why are you hiring? There's so many horror stories that I've personally have lived through, and many that I know who have been through quite a bit just to try to find employment. And I'm sure many of you listening that's been you too. You've endured the most crazy hiring practices you've ever seen. There's times I've wondered that are they even trying to hire anybody at all? I mean, I'll literally watch where for months a position does not get filled, and they might start doing interviews like months later. I'm like, did you need the person or not? By the time a lot of those people are called back, they could have found other jobs, and they've totally missed out on it. But then you have people who apply for jobs, and it's apparent that they don't even want to work. So I don't even know why they applied unless the state demanded that they do it to get an employment check or something. Whatever the motivation is, there's people wasting time on both ends. There's a waste in efficiency on both ends, and there's just nothing but growing frustration from both directions, both with the company and with the employee. But the one thing that did stick out to me that Mitch mentioned during our interview is this idea of living up to expectations, that people will live up to the expectations that you present. And if you lower or have almost no expectations, chances are that's the kind of people you're going to attract. I think that is a sound principle that we have really lost sight of as a people, as a nation. We don't have standards anymore. In fact, there's almost this ingrained fear that if you have certain standards, that you're hateful, you're judgmental, you're not a caring person. There's all the negativity associated with just having a standard. And yet without a standard, you have nothing with which to measure anything. We are measureless. I think part of our frustration as a society today, living under the paradigms we have nowadays, is we have no standards. In fact, our only standard is you're not allowed to have a standard. But then that makes everything measureless. It makes success impossible to figure out. And in this scenario, we're talking about hiring or applying for jobs. It's the same. That idea of not having standards has hurt companies and people who are legitimately looking for work. On the company side, we've, of course, discussed a lot of this with Mitch. Many hire with almost no type of standard, with no expectation of what they expect from the worker. They're not sure the type of person they want or what they want them to do. All they know is they need a body to fill that spot. They have these quick checklist things that supposedly makes them a good candidate. But of course, as I said, a lot of things that are on the list, if you will, are things that can be bought or manipulated. It can be made to look good on paper, or it can be purchased. And if that's the only criteria, and let's face it, that's the huge criteria. I mean, how many anecdotes have you heard or even experienced yourself where the person with the credentials and they go to a school, they get this degree, they show up, and they got the job because of that degree, and they were an idiot. And they didn't have person skills. They were not a good fit for that job. But how many people were passed over that would have been great employees, very efficient and maybe even long serving, simply because we went with the quick paper answer? Oh, they have this, they must be qualified. We're hiring for superficial reasons. And to me, that's detrimental. And now the trend is gone into another crazy direction that we're picking people to hire simply because of whether they're a man or a woman or what race they're from. I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future it can be based upon political alliances. I mean, we're picking people based on an appearance and a category on paper without knowing the person. And that's like the only standard we really have. But the standards that are missing that for a long time have been staples of a good workforce are kind of missing. For example, let's take the standard of hard work. Will you do the work? Are you a hard worker? Do you have a work ethic? Okay. See, to me, references should be a very important part of this process. But I have been a reference on many people's resumes, and not one person has called me, right? I have had none of my references in numerous applications ever be called to ask about how I was or how I worked, right? They don't call, none of my prior places I've worked have ever been contacted to know who I am and how I work. And I wonder, why is that? Are you really not going, you make them list it, but you won't check on it? I mean, there is a laziness there, but it's how do you know if someone's a good worker? Is you ask everywhere they've worked, does this person put in a good day's work? Are they honest? Do they work hard? Do they have a good work ethic? You're not going to know that on paper. You are not going to know it on paper. You don't even have to write your own resumes anymore. You can have an app that kind of streamline that for you. So, I mean, not even that shows the level of intensity and work that somebody put into a project. Not at all. Besides hard work, is someone a team player? Will they work well with others? That's almost never considered, right? Are you a team player? You know, do you have, or do you have a sense of loyalty to you, right? I mean, all these questions that we talked about in interview, that if you don't have that standard, and trust me, we've all been to businesses and we're like, why does no one work? There's no one doing anything. And then you have people who are here just staring at you, not doing nothing, or they're in the back not working and they should be working. There's no managers to be seen. It's absolutely insane. Is that your standard? Obviously it is. Obviously that's your standard. But if we hold higher standards, that's the type of people you attract. It's almost like we've accepted the idea that we have to take people who are basically losers and won't work and give them a job just because it'll be easier for me. That if I have standards, maybe it's too much of a headache. I don't know what the driving factor here is, but if you have higher standards, you'll draw the people who meet those standards. Because look, people who meet these higher standards hate being around people who don't make those standards and watch them get rewarded anyway. You don't keep good people that way. But if you have those standards and people are meeting them and you reward them for meeting them, they love it. That's an atmosphere that they can thrive in. What kills that atmosphere is when there are no standards. Yeah, any knucklehead can get along and prosper, usually at the expense of the one doing the actual work. And guess what happens? They're going to leave. But then I think about it from the management side with standards, because you want the worker to have good standards. You want them to have a good work ethic. You want them to have a sense of loyalty, to be a team player, to want to contribute to the overall thing of what's going on, that that they're trustworthy. That's what you want, right? But at the same time, the worker wants managers and leaders who are trustworthy. And in my opinion, my personal opinion, we have a leadership crisis far more than we have a working crisis. Because I think if we had great leaders, we would find the good workers again. People would have an incentive to want to work, because people want to work with people who lead well. No one wants to be stuck with the leader that just sucks. Period. You don't want to be with the guy that's going to throw you under the bus every time something goes wrong. You don't want to be with the person that's going to use and abuse you, and they're always gone, but then they show up and take the credit all the time. You don't want to be with the boss that doesn't do their job, but then takes it out on everybody else when the job's not done. You want someone we should have standards for our leaders. But I guess that's an antithesis to common business practice nowadays, right? Why have good leaders when you can have mediocre leaders and still somehow make a profit? To me, that's kind of what we're at right now. You're getting away with it, so you don't care, right? But that's the short game. Long game is I can see, companies really suffering because of this. There are good leaders, but good leaders don't have to stay trapped in their circumstance. They'll go where they're appreciated. Leaders are just as important, if not more so, than the workers that you have. You have to have good leaders, especially when you're a big organization. And you have to have standards for those leaders. For example, leaders have to do their job, not everybody else's, right? They have to do their job. And they can't lead from behind a desk 24/7 just sending emails. They have to get out there and do it and lead. Those are the kind of leaders you need. Again, leaders look great on paper. I've been in charge of this, and this, and I got this leadership award, but how do you lead? Do you actually do it? Because a resume is not an accurate picture of how somebody leads. So we need standards all around. We just need to accept that, you know what? Sometimes people are poor fit and we don't need them. and we should have the right to let them go. But at the same time, we have standards, and if you meet those standards, you should be rewarded. That's what creates a positive atmosphere.
You've been listening to Rage of the Age. If you loved today's podcast, make sure to leave a review on the media you're listening through. Secure future episodes by heading over to rageoftheage.com and clicking the RSS feed button. Until next time, this has been Rage of the Age.